hit that like button and subscribe.
Welcome back to the deep dive. And if you have been writing with us for a while, you know the drill by now.
Right. Usually we're wading through this, stack of dense reports.
Exactly. Maybe it's a new study on neuroplasticity or a breakdown of global supply chain economics or maybe a white paper on the future of renewable energy stores.
The heavy stuff.
The heavy stuff, yeah. We take that, we drill down to the bedrock, and we try to find the nuggets of gold that you actually need to know.
Right.
But today we are pivoting. We are doing something completely different, and honestly, I haven't been this charmed or this intellectually provoked by a set of source materials in a long, long time.
I completely agree. It is a significant departure from our usual hard data analysis. We aren't looking at a spreadsheet or a graph today.
Yeah, no.
We are looking at a narrative.
Yeah.
Specifically, we are reading and analyzing this collection of vignettes, and it's titled The Geometry of Us.
Right. And for everyone listening, do not let that title scare you. I know geometry might trigger some, high school flashbacks of proofs and protractors. Oh, yeah.
We are not going to make you do homework, but we are going to talk about math.
We are, but not math as just a tool for calculation. We are looking at math as a philosophy, as a lens for seeing the world. See, the premise of these stories is simple, but I think brilliant. It follows two characters who are essentially human avatars of two opposing mathematical concepts. And through their relationship, we explore the friction between two very different ways of existing in the universe.
We have Dave and we have Pi.
Dave and Pi. And to understand the deep insights we are going to extract today, we have to start by really defining who these two are, because they represent a fundamental duality in the human experience.
Okay.
First, you have Dave. Dave is the rational.
When we say rational, we don't just mean sensible or logical in the everyday sense, do we? We mean it in the strict mathematical sense.
Correct. That distinction is absolutely crucial. In mathematics, a rational number is any number that can be expressed as a fraction.
Like 1/2. 3/4? Exactly. Even a standard integer like 5, which is just 5/1. Rational numbers are.
Right.
They're clean. They're terminating. They make sense.
They have a clear beginning and a clear end.
Right. If you write them as decimals, they either stop like 0.5 or they repeat in a totally predictable pattern. Dave is the embodiment of this. He's an engineer. He likes straight lines. He likes tasks to be completed. He likes the world to fit into a grid. He finds comfort in the finite.
And then there's Pi.
The avatar of the irrational.
Which, again, doesn't mean crazy. Well, I mean, reading some of these stories, maybe a little bit crazy.
A little bit, yeah. But primarily, we are talking about the mathematical definition.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this context, it refers to irrational numbers. These are numbers that you just cannot write as a simple fraction. You can't express them as A over B.
And the most famous one is right there in the name.
Of course, the number pi 3.14159, and so on and so on. The key characteristic of an irrational number is that its decimal expansion goes on forever and it never, ever repeats.
It is infinite and it is unpredictable.
That is the character of Pi in these stories. Pi sees the world through this lens of infinite complexity. Pi doesn't just see a pie crust. Pi sees a geometric plane. Pi doesn't see a dog. Pi sees a statistical outlier. Pi lives in the messy, beautiful, endless details.
So our mission today is to walk through these vignettes, which cover, everything from baking an apple pie to filing taxes to going on a cruise.
All of it.
And unpack the friction between these two worldviews. Because what struck me reading this is that while it's funny, and it is laugh out loud funny at times,
Really is.
it's also touching on this really profound tension between good enough and perfection.
That is the core conflict. That is it right there. Dave lives in the world of good enough. That's engineering. That's survival. That is how you get a bridge built or a dinner cooked.
Yeah.
Pi lives in the world of absolute truth. That's pure mathematics. And you cannot live in absolute truth and get dinner on the table at the same time. The sparks that fly between them. That is what we are here to explore.
So let's just jump right into the first story. It really sets the stage for everything that follows. It is titled The Geometry of a Perfect Apple Pie.
A classic domestic task. Something simple, wholesome.
You would think. Dave certainly thinks so. He opens a cookbook, he sees a recipe. To him, this is an algorithm. Step 1, make crust. Step 2, slice apples. Step 3, bake.
Execute code, eat pie.
Exactly. It's a linear process.
Input ingredients, apply heat, output dessert. It is a solved problem. Millions of pies have been baked before. Therefore, the path is clear. But then Pi enters the kitchen, and immediately the dynamic shifts.
Yes, it does.
Pi isn't holding a wooden spoon. Pi is holding a laser caliber.
I absolutely love this detail, a laser caliber. For those who don't spend time in a machine shop, that is a precision measuring tool, right?
Oh, yeah. You use it when you need to measure things down to the thousandth of an inch. It is used for quality control in manufacturing aerospace parts, not for checking bakeware.
But Pi is measuring the pie pan. The commercial sticker on the bottom says 9-inch pan.
But it's not. Pi measures it and finds it is 8.9924 inches at one angle and 8.9931 inches at another.
And Pi loses it. The quote here is just fantastic. It's not a perfect circle, Dave. It's an oblate spheroid. We're baking a lie.
Oh, there is so much to unpack in just that one outburst. First, let's talk about the geometry. Pi is technically mathematically correct.
Right. Yeah.
In the physical universe, there is no such thing as a perfect circle. A perfect circle is a theoretical construct. It is a set of points on a 2D plane that are all exactly equidistant from a center point.
Like in a textbook.
Right. You can describe that in an equation.
Yeah.
X squared plus y squared equals r squared. It exists in the realm of ideas. It exists in the abstract. But you cannot hold a perfect circle in your hand.
Because atoms vibrate? Is that why?
Because of everything. Entropy, atoms vibrate. Manufacturing has tolerances. I mean, even the most precise sphere ever created by humans. These silicon spheres used to redefine the kilogram, which cost millions of dollars to make. They are not perfect spheres. They have microscopic mountains and valleys. So when Pi looks at that cheap aluminum pan from the grocery store, Pi sees the discrepancy between the ideal, the platonic form of a 9-inch circle, and the real, this oblate spheroid.
You mentioned oblate spheroid. That is actually the shape of the Earth, isn't it?
It is. The Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It spins, so centrifugal force causes to bulge at the equator and flatten at the poles. It's squashed slightly.
So Pi is accusing the pie pan of having the same imperfection as the entire planet.
Yes. It is this complete rejection of the physical world in favor of the mathematical ideal. It's a betrayal.
But Dave just wants pi.
Dave represents the pragmatist. He operates on tolerances. In engineering, you have a tolerance plus or minus 0.1 millimeters, for example. If it falls within that range, it is the thing.
Good enough.
It's good enough. To Dave, 8.9924 is functionally 9. It holds apples if it's in the oven. Therefore, it is a 9-inch pan. To Pi, 8.9924 is a betrayal of the truth. It is a lie stamped in aluminum.
The conflict just gets worse when they try to roll the dough. Dave hands over the rolling pin, and Pi just treats it like it's this strange foreign object.
Right. Pi says, I can't just roll it. I need a fulcrum. I need a compass.
A compass.
Pi is trying to solve the problem of squaring the circle using kitchen tools. This is a famous ancient problem in geometry that dates back to the Greeks. The challenge was to construct a square with the exact same area as a given circle, but using only a finite number of steps with a compass and a straight edge.
Okay.
For centuries, mathematicians tried to solve this. It was finally proven impossible in 1882 because pi, the number, is transcendental. But here is Pi, the character, trying to force this impossible geometric purity onto a lump of dough.
And the dough isn't cooperating, of course.
Ow.
Pi complains it's exhibiting elasticity consistent with non-Newtonian fluids. Now, I've heard of non-Newtonian fluids like oobleck, right? The cornstarch and water stuff you make with kids.
Exactly. That's the classic example. A Newtonian fluid, like water or oil, has a constant viscosity. It flows the same whether you pour it slow or fast. It behaves predictably.
Got it.
A non-Newtonian fluid changes its viscosity depending on the stress you apply. If you punch dough, it feels hard and solid for a second. If you press it slowly, it yields and flows. So Pi is trying to apply these rigid, static Euclidean geometry rules to a substance that is dynamically reacting to stress.
It's a category error.
A complete category error.
Sure.
You can't use compass and straight-edge geometry to control fluid dynamics. It's the wrong tool for the job.
So Dave sees this meltdown happening, flowers flying everywhere, Pi is hyperventilating about angles and planes, and he yells, just make it flattish.
And that is the trigger, that little suffix, ish.
Pi screams, there is no ish in geometry. It is either a plane or it is not.
And this is the profound philosophical point of this entire segment. Mathematics is binary in this regard. A triangle is a triangle. It has 3 sides and angles adding up to 180 degrees. If one side is curved, even slightly, it is not a triangle-ish. It is simply not a triangle.
It's a world of absolutes.
Exactly. Sharp edges, clear definitions, but human life. Human life is almost entirely composed of ish. We are happy-ish. The room is cleanish. The drive is fast-ish. Dave is comfortable in the ish. In fact, civilization is built on the ish.
But pi is allergic to it.
Allergic to it because ish implies a lack of definition. It implies uncertainty. It implies approximation. An approximation is a form of lying to pi.
Eventually, they get the crust in the pan, presumably with pi just vibrating with anxiety the whole time, and they move on to the apples. And Dave, of course, starts chopping them up into what he calls chunks.
Big, dumb, irrational chunks. That description just cracks me up.
It's great. But pi is horrified. Pi is worried about interstitial space.
The air gaps. This is a packing problem.
Yeah.
It's a real mathematical concept. If you throw irregular shapes, like Dave's chunks, into a container, they don't pack perfectly. There is air between them.
And pi sees this as a density problem.
Right. If the density isn't uniform, the heat transfer during baking won't be uniform. Some parts will get mushy, some will be raw. It's a computational nightmare.
So what does pi do? Pi starts arranging the apple slices in a Fibonacci spiral.
Of course, the golden ratio. It had to be.
We hear about this all the time, the golden ratio in art and architecture, but
Yeah.
why apples? Is this just pi trying to make it look pretty?
It's not just pretty, it's about efficiency. The Fibonacci sequence is a series where each number is the sum of the two before it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. When you map this spatially, you get this beautiful spiral. Nature uses this constantly. Look at the head of a sunflower. Look at a pine cone. Look at the arrangement of leaves on a stem. It's called phyllotaxis. Nature uses this arrangement because it is the most efficient way to pack seeds or leaves into a space to maximize exposure to sunlight or to minimize those interstitial spaces that pi is so worried about.
So pi isn't just being artsy. Pi is using biomimicry.
Pi is using the mathematical optimization code of nature to pack the apples. It is objectively the most efficient way to fill the pie. Pi is trying to bring perfect natural order to the chaos of the fruit.
But then Dave just dumps a cup of sugar on top and ruins the perfect symmetry.
Which is the reality of cooking, isn't it? You can optimize the placement, but eventually you have to add the chaos, the sugar, the cinnamon, the heat. You have to destroy the perfect geometry to create the flavor.
Speaking of heat, let's talk about the oven setting. Pi tries to set it to 375.14159 degrees using a magnifying glass.
This is the illusion of control, taken to its extreme. Pi believes that if the inputs are precise to 5 decimal places, the output will be perfect. But a household oven is a chaotic thermal system.
It's not that precise.
Not even close. It usually uses what's called a bang-bang controller. The heating element turns on, the temperature overshoots 375, it turns off. The temperature drops below 375, it turns on again. It's a hysteresis loop.
So it's a wave.
It's a wave, not a straight line. You literally cannot set an oven to that precision. Pi is fighting the second law of thermodynamics here. Entropy will always increase.
And pi is watching the baking process like a hawk, terrified of the expansion coefficient of the crust.
That's material science. Things expand when they get heated. Pi is worried the circumference of the crust will exceed the structural integrity of the gluten network.
In plain English, the crust might crack.
Exactly. Pi is analyzing a pie like it's the heat shield on a re-entry vehicle for a spaceship.
And of course, it does crack a little. The pie comes out, it's bubbly, it's golden, it smells amazing, but the crust has shrunk by 4%, and pie is devastated.
It's the tragedy of the perfectionist. The 4% failure is all Pi can see, the deviation from the model, the one bubble that broke the plane.
But they cut a slice, and Pi, of course, notes the angle was 58 degrees, not a perfect sextant of 60.
Always measuring.
Always measuring. But then Pi takes a bite, and this is the turn. Pi says the flavor is non-repeating and transcendental.
I love this choice of words. We mentioned earlier that pi, the number, is irrational, but it's also something more specific. It's transcendental.
What does that mean mathematically?
In math, a transcendental number is a specific type of irrational number that is not the root of any integer polynomial equation. Long story short, it's a number that transcends algebra. It's wild, it's uncontainable, it cannot be pinned down by simple formulas.
So when Pi describes the flavor as transcendental,
Pi is saying that the flavor cannot be defined by a simple formula. It's infinitely complex. It has layers, sweetness, acidity, fat, salt, that interact in a way that never repeats on the palate. The messiness of the baking, the ish, the shrinking, the bubbling, created a complexity that a perfect, geometrically pure pie never could.
and Dave agrees. He calls it irrational how good this is.
And that's the bridge. That's where they meet. They both acknowledge that the chaos, the imperfection, produce something valuable. The ish is where the flavor lives.
I love that. Okay, let's move on to the next segment. The friction gets a bit more personal here. We're in the geometry of a relationship, and Dave and Pi are in couples therapy.
And the therapist is Dr. Euclidia.
A great name.
It's a perfect nod to Euclid of Alexandria, the father of geometry. And she's described with glasses like isosceles triangles and a desk where everything is at perfect 90-degree angles. She's the ultimate structuralist.
She seems to think everything can be solved with lines and angles.
Precisely.
So Dave starts the complaint we've all heard, or maybe even said, we are going in circles.
Yeah, and that implies futility. Doing the same thing over and over, ending up exactly where you started.
But Pi immediately interrupts. Pi says, no, it's a non-repeating spiral. There is a difference. A loop implies stagnation. I am constantly discovering new digits.
This is actually a really, really valid psychological distinction.
Right.
To Dave, the rational, if an argument feels the same as the last one, it represents a circle. It's a closed loop. Zero progress. Why are we doing this again?
Right. It's inefficient.
Exactly.
Right.
But to Pi, the irrational, even if the argument is about the same topic, let's say being late, it is happening at a new point in time with slightly different context, with new emotions involved.
So it's not a circle.
It is not a circle. It is a spiral. It's moving through time. It's expanding. To Pi, the conflict feels dynamic and exploratory, even if it's painful. To Dave, it feels static and exhausting.
Dr. Euclidia listens to them bicker about punctuality. Dave wants integers, Pi wants to calculate optimal viewing angles for widescreen movies, and she gives them a diagnosis. She calls them skew lines.
This hit me hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't thought about skew lines since high school geometry, but as a relationship metaphor, it is.
It's devastatingly accurate and, frankly, quite sad.
Okay, so break it down for us. What exactly are skew lines?
Okay, so picture two lines on a piece of paper, right? That's a 2D space. They are either parallel, meaning they run side by side forever, always equidistant.
Or they intersect. They cross at a single point.
Exactly. That's it. Those are your only two options in 2D space. But we live in 3D space. So imagine a line drawn on the floor of this room running north to south.
Yeah.
Now imagine another line drawn on the ceiling running east to west. They are not parallel. They're going in completely different directions. But they will also never, ever intersect because they are on different vertical planes.
Wow.
Those are skew lines.
So they aren't even fighting in the same reality. They're just talking past each other. Exactly. The vignette calls it the loneliest geometry. They are bypassing each other completely. Date is operating on the x-axis of efficiency and completion. Pi is operating on the y-axis of theoretical perfection and infinite possibility. They miss each other. They aren't even clashing. They are just existing in different dimensions within the same house.
So what is Dr. Euclidia's prescription? How do you fix skew lines?
She gives them each a mathematical task. For Dave, she prescribes an approximation. She tells him he needs to accept a margin of error. If dinner's at 7.0 and it happens at 7.04, that has to be within tolerance.
He needs to widen his lines into lanes.
That's a great way to put it, yes. But for Pi, the task is different. She prescribes limits. This is a core concept in calculus.
And she says to Pi, you can approach infinity, but as t approaches bedtime, you must converge.
That is brilliant advice. Just brilliant. In calculus, a limit allows us to examine the behavior of a function as it gets closer and closer to a specific point. You can have a series that goes on forever, but it can still converge to a single number.
So she's saying,
She is saying, Pi, you can have your infinite thoughts. You can have your complex feelings. You can analyze the geometry of the room forever. But in the shared reality of a relationship, the function of us, you have to converge on a decision.
you have to land the plane.
You have to land the plane, you have to pick a restaurant, you have to get in the car, you have to let the series terminate effectively or nothing ever happens. You have to define a stopping point, even if the math theoretically continues forever.
The session ends with the bill. It's $150, a flat integer.
And Pi is immediately suspicious. No tax, no processing fee. Pi tries to calculate the overhead to dispute the sheer simplicity of the number. To Pi, a round number looks fake. It looked like it's hiding something.
But Dave just says converge.
And Pi does, reluctantly. Pi says, we will pay the integer. It's a sign of growth. Pi is accepting the finite nature of the transaction.
And that leads to the sweet moment at the very end where Pi tells Dave, I love you approximately 3.14 times more than I did yesterday.
It's an irrational amount of love. It's so sweet. It acknowledges the math, but applies it to affection in a way that only Pi could.
Moving into segment 3, we see what this dynamic looks like out in the wild. This part is called the infinite dimensions of an irrational relationship. It's basically a compilation of their daily struggles.
And the car ride argument is a classic.
They are late for dinner, of course. Pi is 3.14159% done with their hair. Dave is driving, and Dave takes the highway. It's linear, point A to point B.
It's the geodesic. The shortest path between 2 points in a flat space is a straight line. Dave is minimizing time and fuel. It's pure efficiency.
But Pi wants to take a radial approach. Pi wants to arc toward the city, and this leads to Pi bringing up an ex-boyfriend.
Oh yes, 7/8.
What a name. And Pi just roasts this guy. Pi says he was a terminating decimal, very predictable, stopped exactly when expected, boring in bed.
That is a brutal, brutal mathematical burn. Let's just look at the number 7 divided by 8. It equals 0.875. That's it. It stops.
No more digits.
It doesn't go on. It's fully resolved. There is no mystery to the number 0.875. Once you get to the 5, you know everything there is to know. There's nothing left to discover.
And Pi equates that predictability with boredom.
Precisely. Pi, as an irrational number, represents the unknown. You can calculate pi to 1 trillion digits, and you still don't know what the next digit will be until you calculate it. There is perpetual mystery. Pi is arguing that passion requires that mystery, that non-repeating nature. If a partner is fully predictable, if they terminate, the spark dies.
But Dave counters this. He points out the downside of Pi's nature, the domestic clutter.
The brownies.
The brownies. Pi cut a pan of brownies into a spiral galaxy shape to maximize the crust-to-goo ratio.
Now, scientifically, the crust is the best part. The Maillard reaction happens there. It's where all the complex flavor is. So maximizing the surface area of the edge is a noble goal.
But physically?
You have ruined the structural integrity of the brownie pan. You can't store those leftovers. It's a mess of crumbs and goo. It's chaos.
And the laundry. This was my favorite. Pi folded the sheets into a Mobius strip.
A Mobius strip is a surface with only one side and only one boundary. You can make one by taking a strip of paper, giving it a half twist, and taping the ends together. If you run your finger along it, you will traverse both the inside and the outside without ever lifting your finger.
It's a topological marvel.
It is, but as a bedsheet, it's completely useless. It doesn't have a top or bottom anymore. You can't tuck it in. Pi has prioritized topological interest over domestic utility. Again.
This leads to the big fight where Dave calls Pi irrational, and he means it as an insult, like you're being crazy.
But Pi wears it as armor.
Yeah.
Pi yells, "I am a constant of the universe. I am everywhere." And, Pi is right.
How so?
In mathematics, irrational numbers are actually much more common than rational numbers. The diagonal of a simple square with a side length of 1 is the square root of 2, an irrational number. The circumference of any circle involves pi. Irrationality is woven into the very fabric of reality.
So we just use integers because they're easier.
They're convenient for humans. Pi is arguing that Dave's rational world is a simplification, a dumbing down of the universe. Pi is the default state of nature. Dave is the artificial construct we impose on it.
Eventually they compromise. Dave admits he loves a complexiter, but he needs Pi to terminate just for dinner, and Pi agrees to order off the menu.
And then there's the flirtation at the end. Pi suggests trigonometry.
And Dave calls it acute.
It's a great pun. A pun on cute and acute angle, which is an angle less than 90 degrees. It shows they are developing a shared language. They are finding humor in their differences instead of just frustration.
It's a good sign. Okay, let's go on vacation with them. Segment 4. The infinite geometries of the SS Asymptote. They are on a cruise ship.
Because ship is Dave's paradise and Pi's hell. A ship is a container. It has a fixed itinerary, fixed meal times, a defined boundary. There is nowhere to go. It is a closed system.
The brochure says unlimited luxury, and Pi immediately asks if that is countably infinite or uncountably infinite.
Okay, buckle up, because this is where we touch on set theory. The mathematician George Cantor in the late 19th century proved something that basically shattered mathematics. Not all infinities are the same size.
That sounds impossible. How can one forever be bigger than another forever?
Okay, think of the integers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. You can count them, they go on forever, but you can list them in an order. That is a countable infinity.
Got it.
Now think of the real numbers. All the possible decimals between just 0 and 1.
Oh, wow.
0.1, 0.01, 0.001, 0.123, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are so many of them that you cannot list them. Even between 0 and 1, there's a larger infinity than the set of all integers combined. This is uncountable infinity.
So when Pi asks about the shrimp buffet,
Pi wants to know, is the shrimp buffet just a really, really long list which is countable? Or is it a dense, boundless continuum of shrimp that defies enumeration, which is uncountable?
I am going to guess it's countable.
Unless it's a really, really good cruise. But Pi is genuinely distressed by the ambiguity. The marketing is mathematically imprecise.
Pi struggles with the pool, too. It's kidney-shaped.
No clear equation for that. It's an irregular curve. A nightmare.
In the splash, Pi analyzes the turbulence of a cannonball splash using Navier-Stokes equations.
This is such a fantastic reference. The Navier-Stokes equations describe how fluids like water and air move. They are the absolute foundation of aerodynamics and hydrodynamics. But here's the catch. We don't actually know if they always work.
What do you mean?
Proving that smooth, predictable solutions to these equations always exist in 3D space is one of the 7 Millennium Prize problems. If you solve it, you get $1 million from the Clay Mathematics Institute.
So Pi is looking at a kid doing a cannonball.
And seeing $1 million hole in human knowledge. Pi sees the turbulence, the chaos that math cannot yet fully predict. It causes existential dread. We can't predict the splash, Dave. We don't have a general solution. Dave just sees a splash. Pi sees the limits of human intellect.
The emotional climax of this whole vacation segment is the concept of the asymptote. Dave finds Pi at the bow of the ship, looking at the horizon with a sextant.
And Pi calls the horizon an asymptote. An asymptote is a line that a curve approaches. As you go further and further out, the distance between the curve and the line gets smaller and smaller. It gets infinitesimally close. But strictly speaking, in standard geometry, it never, ever touches.
And Pi sees this as tragic. Infinite longing. Zero contact. You are always chasing the horizon, but you never arrive. It represents this unfulfilled desire for perfection.
It's a perfect metaphor for the unachievable ideal. Pi wants the perfect circle, the perfect truth, the perfect relationship, but you can never quite reach it. You can only approach it.
But Dave reframes it, and this is why they work as a couple, I think. Dave says, it's not tragic. It means the vacation never has to end.
It's beautiful. If you never touch the line, the curve keeps going. The function continues. Dave sees the lack of a termination point as a positive thing. It's about the journey. It's about the continuation.
And Pi accepts this. Pi decides to square the circle, which we already established is impossible. But metaphorically, they find peace.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to accept the impossible metaphor just so you can go and enjoy the chocolate fountain.
That's right. Okay, segment 5. The most stressful time of year for any couple. The infinite tax return.
April 14th. It's the collision of the vague, messy real world and the precise government form. The unstoppable force of Pi meets the immovable object of the IRS.
We start with the mileage deduction. Dave says, I drove about 4,500 miles.
A nice round integer, an estimate. Good enough for government work, as they say.
But Pi says, no, I have calculated 4,500.09823 miles. Pi has accounted for the curvature of the Earth and the arc length of the lane changes on the highway.
Pi is calculating arc length. Dave is just reading the odometer. The odometer is a mechanical approximation. It counts wheel rotations. It doesn't account for whether you drove on the inside or the outside of a curve perfectly. Pi is technically more accurate. Pi measured the actual path traveled in space, but for the IRS. It's just noise. It's irrelevant precision.
This leads to a huge argument about rounding. Pi calls rounding barbaric, chopping off the tails of the universe.
Think about what a number means to Pi. If you have a number like 4.56789 and you round it up to 5, you have just deleted information. You've erased the 0.56789 part of reality.
Yeah.
To Pi, that is lying. It's a distortion of the truth. It is simplifying the universe to make it fit in a box.
Whereas to Dave, rounding is a tool.
Right. It simplifies data so we can make decisions. This is the classic conflict between significant figures in science, where that precision matters, and estimates in business, where speed matters more.
Pi goes so far as to try to write an integral formula in the total deductions box.
Pi argues that their poverty is relative to the expansion of the national debt, which approaches infinity. Therefore, their deduction should be a function of that expansion.
Which economically is maybe a fascinating thesis.
But legally, you're getting audited. You cannot integrate your taxes. The form has a box. You put a number in the box.
And the banana receipt. Pi tries to calculate sales tax using variable inflation curves.
Pi is treating the economy like a fluid dynamic system again. The price of a banana is fixed at the register. But Pi is thinking about the value of the dollar fluctuating in real time between the shelf and the register. It's over-modeling. It's applying complex systems theory to a banana.
The breaking point is when Pi claims they overpaid by 0.00000000003 cents due to Euler's number.
Euler's number, E, is the base of the natural logarithm. It's about 2.718. It's used in calculating things like continuous compound interest. Pi is applying continuous compound interest logic to a discrete sales tax transaction. It's absurdly precise. It is accuracy without any utility.
So Dave snaps, he opens TurboTax, he clicks standard deduction, he hits submit.
The nuclear option. He just bypasses all the math entirely. He accepts the good enough that the government offers everyone.
And Pi is devastated. Pi says, I feel so truncated, I feel like a rational number.
That is such a sad line in this context. To be truncated means to be cut short. To be made rational means to be made common, simple, finite. Pi feels that by ignoring the complexity, Dave has ignored Pi's very soul. Pi feels reduced to a fraction.
But Dave saves it. He tells Pi, "You're still infinite to me."
It's the reassurance Pi needs. The tax return is finite, the love is infinite. It acknowledges that they can live in the ish of the tax code without losing the absolute of their identity as a couple.
And they go to sleep at 11.59 in a fraction seconds, just beating the deadline.
Living on the edge of the limit, always.
Okay, finally, segment 6. The mathematics of an irrational best friend. They go to get a dog.
Or they go to the shelter to try.
Right, and the shelter is a nightmare for Pi. Stochastic. Noise entropy.
Stochastic just means random. Random barking. No pattern. It's pure chaos. It is noise that conveys no information, and that is very stressful for Pi.
So Dave goes straight for a golden retriever. Ideally, he wants a dog that does what it's told. 1 + 1, 2, sit means sit. A linear dog.
But Pi rejects the golden retriever. And do you remember why? Bilateral symmetry. A solved equation.
Pi thinks the golden retriever is too perfect, too symmetrical.
Too predictable. The golden retriever is the Dave of dogs. It's reliable, it's symmetrical, it's the standard model of dog. Pi looks at it and says, I know exactly what this dog is going to do for the next 12 years. Where is the discovery in that? Where is the chaos?
They look at a snake. Pi loves it. A sine wave.
A sine wave is a smooth, periodic oscillation. A snake moving is geometry in motion. It's a living wave function on the floor. But Dave puts his foot down. No legless pets.
They look at a sphinx cat, the hairless one. Pi calls it the null set.
The empty set, a set containing no elements, zero fur, zero friction. To Pi, it's a mathematical curiosity, but not a pet.
But then they find the one. A mutt.
Describe this dog.
It's got a crooked tail, mismatched ears, it sits at a weird angle.
And Pi falls in love immediately, because the dog is an outlier. In statistics, an outlier is a data point that differs significantly from other observations. It defies the bell curve. It defies the standard deviation. Most dogs fall within a certain range of dogness. This dog is way, way out on the tail of the distribution graph.
A statistical anomaly.
Yes. Pi looks at this messy, asymmetrical dog and sees a kindred spirit. This dog is irrational. Its genetics are non-repeating. It can't be solved.
Pi notes the dog tries to chase its tail but misses by a radian.
A radian is a unit of angle. It's about 57 degrees. Pi is measuring the dog's clumsiness with trigonometric precision. The dog isn't just missing, it's missing by a calculated geometric margin.
They have to name it. Pi wants chaos theory. Dave wants buddy. They settle on Theo.
Short for theorem.
Which is perfect. A theorem is something that has to be proven. And this dog proves that love is random. It's a proposition they are testing together.
It really is.
We leave them walking the dog. Theo walks in a zigzag. Pi calls it maximizing distance relative to displacement.
This is a great physics joke. If you walk in a straight line from point A to point B, your distance walked equals your displacement, which is how far you are from the start. If you zigzag, your distance is huge. You are doing a lot of walking, but your displacement is small. The dog is doing a lot of work to get nowhere.
And Pi respects that.
Pi respects the inefficiency. Pi respects the exploration of the space. Dave just thinks the dog is clumsy.
And Dave calls the dog's eyes of a potato? And Pi defends the potato, a solid with infinite surface points.
Which is technically true. Any physical object has infinite points on its surface. Pi defends the mundane by revealing the infinite math hidden inside it. Even a potato is a geometric miracle if you look at it closely enough.
So we've laughed at Dave and Pi for the last hour, but as we wrap up, what is the real takeaway here? What does the geometry of us actually teach us?
I think it teaches us that a functional society and a functional life, a functional relationship, needs both of these forces. We need Daves. We need the rational. We need bridges that don't fall down. We need taxes filed on time. We need to simplify the world just enough to survive in it.
Yeah.
If we were all Pince, we would starve to death while marveling at the fractals in a head of broccoli. We would never leave the house because the doorframe wasn't a perfect rectangle.
But if we were all Daves...
If we were all Daves, the world would be efficient, but it would be gray. It would be a terminating decimal. It would be 0.875. Done. We need pins to remind us that the world isn't actually a grid. We need pins to see the transcendental flavor in a messy pie. We need pins to look at the horizon and see an asymptote, a longing for something greater. We need the irrational to find beauty in the cracks of the rational.
The ish is where the flavor lives.
Exactly. Life is rarely an integer. It's messy, it's irrational, it's non-repeating. You can't solve life like an equation. You can't just terminate the decimal. The goal isn't to fix the chaos. The goal is to find a partner, your own days or your own pi, who makes that infinite calculation worth the trouble.
I love that. So, to you listening, the next time you're annoyed that your partner is taking too long, or the next time you feel like someone is rounding down your complex feelings, maybe stop and look for the geometry. Ask yourself, are we being skew lines right now? Do we need to converge? Or should we just appreciate the non-repeating spiral we're in?
And maybe, just maybe, let the crust be a little asymmetrical. It probably tastes better that way.
Thanks for diving deep with
And
us.
keep calculating.
Oh, hit the like button and subscribe. And hit that damn bell.